So as I sit here making Trumpet Thought videos on a really pretty snowy day, as you can see out the back windows here, it's very picturesque. I've had this thought for the last few weeks, and I have a notepad on my phone that whenever I have an idea for a video, I try to like throw it in there to talk about it. And I had kind of an epiphany that I don't know that I've really heard anyone put together, which means either I'm onto an original thought or it means that I've misunderstood something. Or I just haven't seen someone else make this connection. But if you've been in the trumpet world at all, if you're a serious player or serious hobbyist, you've likely heard of the Bobby Shew Wedge Breath or the Maynard Yoga Breath. These are likely like things that you've heard of. And I think most people feel the Maynard breath is like kind of a little misunderstood, and that Bobby was the best person to actually teach that. And I think even with that, there's been some misunderstandings of how that wedge breath is, the idea behind it, and how it's supposed to be used. And sometimes people would say like, oh, I don't want that much compression on my airstream all the time. And that's certainly true that the wedge breath allows you to compress the air more and provide more abdominal support that you don't need on every single note. That's certainly true. But what I had an epiphany on was the realization that really the wedge breath is very similar to the concept that Donald Reinhardt talked about way back in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, talking about the shortened air column for trumpet. Essentially, he had this concept that for the higher pitched brass instruments like the trumpet, our air column was shorter. We didn't need the air column that descended all the way down into the bottom of our lungs the way we might for a tuba player, and that actually thinking of that shorter air column that kind of descended down into this area here was more effective for playing trumpet. And as I've taken some lessons with Bobby, and would love to take them again, frankly, because I think at the time I took them before, I wasn't as far enough along to understand it. I think now I would like get a lot more about what he was trying to teach me. But my experience with the wedge breath basically does the same thing. And so if you haven't seen any of this stuff on the wedge breath, there's other people that can describe it better than I can. But essentially the idea is that there's a relaxation of your stomach muscles, which is your first inhalation. But it's not so much of an inhalation as it is a release of the grip on your stomach. So most of us, as we're sitting or standing, we have some amount of our stomach that's kind of pulled in, whether it's for vanity or just like to support our torso, so we can sit comfortably, especially if we're sitting upright, not leaning against something. But for this first breath, you're just taking a nice, easy breath, and it's just to release the stomach muscles and relax. That's it. It's just that much breath. It's 10% maybe. Like, it's not very much air. Like that. And then the next breath, you're breathing in while essentially reestablishing some of that. And then the next breath, you're just breathing in. So relaxing the abdominals, taking that breath in like that. And then you're firming up here. And at this point, this air column is like right through here. And that's it. And then you're just releasing the air. And then Bobby would say that, when he needs like that extra top off for like the double C's and stuff like that, that's when you see the shoulders raise. So if we do the full step, so relax, firm up. Now he's full of air, and you squeeze from your diaphragm, squeeze from the belly button, and you just release it. So as I'm squeezing all that, you really can't hear it in my throat because I'm holding all that right here. Well, Reinhardt had a similar idea with that shortened air column. And sometimes as players, we will instead try to, we'll think like, especially if you've, I feel like in high schools over the last couple of decades, we've had a lot of talk about like diaphragmatic breathing and trying to take these big, low breaths like that and trying to play the trumpet this way, like it has this big thing. But I think for me, a lot of times that air ends up feeling like trapped. Like when it gets that low, it feels too low that I can't access it and do anything with it. I feel the tension in my throat. I mean, you can hear it as soon as I stop playing. It just doesn't work. But if I think instead about kind of like the wedge breath or that Reinhardt shortened breath, taking that breath at a shorter air column, it's right where I need it without any of this stress or grunting or strain, any of that kind of stuff. And so for me, that's been a huge, huge difference, is thinking about that shortened air column and how that wedge breath can be used even for normal playing by eliminating the shoulder step and just thinking about it not as being like a high compression, like zing your double C's to the back of the auditorium type of breath, but really is just as a way to compress and manage the air. I want you to try this and see this for yourself and see if you also can have some success with that. I'll give you one caveat though. My friend Jim Manley is, for 2 decades now, has been talking about how like when he breathes, he does that. He's real into that real low breath, and Jim sounds fantastic. I mean, he's just absolutely a marvel at what he can do. But I have not yet been able to figure out the way that Jim plays. So until I do, I'm finding this approach to pay many more dividends for me than the other. But I want to give you that caveat that I could be wrong on this. Okay. But I feel like for the way I'm playing right now, I'm right. What do you think?